And welcome to Absolutely Not. My name is Kay Maltau Thomas Stroll. My pronouns are they, them, and I really appreciate you being here today. You can learn more about me on my website, www.kstroll.com. Real quick, if you appreciate the work that I do here or elsewhere, please visit my Ko-fi page where you can join my multi-tiered communities, leave a tip, or buy one of my workbooks on boundaries and psychological safety. Support my work so I can continue to do this work. The keywords for this episode are care, mental health, and dehumanization. I encourage y'all to look up the definitions of these words and compare them to the definitions you carry with you on a daily basis. If you need help comparing, please let me know. And I apologize to the people in the audience that need the ASL interpreter. Unfortunately, she's not here today. She will be here next time, though. Today's episode is titled Take Care of Yourself with Chantell Frazier, Ph.D., she, her. Dr. Frazier is the CEO and founder of Anansi, LLC, a boutique data and research strategy consulting firm. She focuses on improving mental health and health for the Black community and other marginalized, racialized communities. She is Black American, African American. Dr. Frazier, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me on, Kay. I'm excited to be here and talk with you.
And I know we talked about a little bit earlier that you in the past have not taken care of yourself as much as you believe you should have. Why are you sending that message out to people today that they should be taking care of themselves?
Yeah, I think, we have a responsibility to ourselves and to keep ourselves safe and healthy and happy. And not a lot of people will teach you that, and not a lot of people will be super invested in that first throughout your life. So it's really, really important that, you put yourself first and take care of yourself and make sure that you're, as happy and healthy and safe as possible. Working within, of course, like family and societal structures and your job and work stress and all that. There's a lot coming at you. There's a lot coming at me. There's a lot coming at all of us. And we are in a world that unfortunately values a lot of things that are not our well-being, and a lot of things that can come up against our well-being, right? Like money or status or climbing to the top of some ladder that may or may not actually exist. So it's really important that you take care of yourself. Like, I end my emails with that. I tell people that all the time when in closing, like, the thing that I want you to know when I leave this room or this conversation or whatever is that I think it's important for you to take care of yourself. And hopefully you think it's important too, or hopefully you take a moment and are like, oh, wow, I really appreciate that. And it changes the way that you move throughout your day.
I really love that pause for care that you have, like in all of the work that you do, it sounds like, because I can't think of a time where we're afforded that, like, so just like naturally, like even when you're like in a drive-through or whatever, just like, here's your food, pay the thing. There's no pause for care, really. It's just like automatic responses. I heard someone say, like, sometimes we're just making noise at people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what has caused you, or what caused you to have that pause for care for people in your life?
Yeah, it's something that I started doing not intentionally, and then realized I was doing it and wanted to keep doing it intentionally. Sometimes it's like that. You just like say something and you're like, oh, wait. So especially in my journey as like becoming a wife and a mom and a dog mom and like leaving my job and becoming an entrepreneur, a lot of these things are like emotionally loaded. And a lot of my life has been like pushing through challenges. Getting a PhD is not easy. Getting a PhD in a family where like no one above you had one is not particularly easy. Moving through life as someone who's never been rich is not super easy. So I think it came from, I said it and I paused to think about like, what does that mean? And then realizing in the moments that you're not doing something. I was just listening to like a business podcast or something, and they were saying that a lot of people don't move or change without some kind of catalyst. And for me, the catalyst was really experiencing burnout when all of these things came together, right? When I was like trying to be a mom and trying to be an employee and trying to get promoted and blah, blah, blah. Um, and then suffering from burnout, right? Just realizing that I had not been taking care of myself. I had not been establishing any boundaries. I had not been doing X, Y, and Z, and how much that cost me and how much better off I could have been. And feeling like, oh man, I don't want that for anybody else. Made me sort of be more intentional about like when I leave a room, I want people to take care of themselves. And when I enter a room too, obviously, but you usually remember like the last part of your interaction with someone.
I hate that you burnt yourself out, but I love that it became the catalyst to help other people and to pause and care for other people as needed. Your work focuses mainly on the Black community and how
Mm.
much we're not centered in mental health spaces and health spaces. What did I write down? I'm so sorry. You said earlier that it is a responsibility to ourselves to
Mhm.
care for ourselves. Why don't other people are sorry, why don't other people prioritize Black people's health and mental health at all? Like, I get that it's like an individual responsibility, but even in those spaces, like when Black people reach out for help, we're still not prioritized. Why is that?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that unfortunately, most of mental health practice has been rooted in harm and harmful systems, right? Like white supremacist systems are why we have a lot of the mental health disorders that we have today. Like a lot of the things in the DSM are really problematic. A lot of like even the tools, the screening tools don't sort of like if a white person takes the tool, it says, oh, you have depression or anxiety. If a Black person takes it, it's either there's nothing wrong with you or you have schizophrenia or something like really, really serious. And it's not even built for our communities because we weren't seen as human for so long. And we're brought here with a specific purpose. And that has, bled out into other communities and their consciousness. And even the idea of it's so interesting to watch like the conversations about reparations in this country too, because so many people don't know that reparations were paid out. They just weren't paid out to Black people who were the victims of slavery and that whole institutions. They were paid out to the owners. Um, and then even when people are made aware of this, just the cognitive dissonance of like, oh, well, but still, like, if you get money, it's unfair. But it's not money for free. It's being paid for labor that has already been done and for profits that have already come to pass, right? And there's also no way you can really pay that debt, right? Like if someone goes to court and sues for, wrongful death and they get a whole bunch of money, that still doesn't bring that person back, right? There's no way you can pay the debt of taking a life or inflicting trauma or violence, right? It's an attempt to make things right, but there's no way you can actually do that and undo what's been done. Um, yeah, so I think it's part dehumanization, it's part lack of knowledge, it's part, um, just not knowing enough or thinking enough about what happens to us on a daily basis. And by us, I don't just mean Black people. I mean Black people who are LGBTQ plus. I mean Black people with disabilities, Black people who are self-identify as autistic or ADHD or on the spectrum in any way. There are all of these different sort of ways in which our world is built in a way that is harmful to so many people. Um, and we haven't taken seriously the responsibility to come at that in a solutions oriented way that actually impacts everyone and not just sort of the dominant paradigm.
This, I appreciate you sharing so much knowledge in just that answer. And this may be shocking to even the Black viewers or listeners because a lot of us don't know our history. Like the history is not accessible unless you get a PhD sometimes, or like, and a lot of us don't have access to that educational route sometimes either. So
Mhm.
I appreciate you sharing that here. And to the people who may be in shock, like you talked about how this knowledge is sometimes hard to digest a little bit. Like
Mhm.
it's some, for a lot of people, like for white people, definitely they'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, reparations, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But even for Black people in that same like teaspoon, that may be hard to digest, that we are
Mhm.
constantly being harmed. How
Mhm.
in pausing in care or taking care of ourselves are is that going to help us kind of swallow this tablespoon of like we are constantly being harmed?
Yeah, yeah. So, um, it's really important to understand when things happen to you as an individual that you are hardly ever actually responsible for that. Like, I think that a lot of people take on, like, oh, I shouldn't have said, or I shouldn't have gone there, or I shouldn't have. No, I feel like, and this is true, it's not just a feeling. You should be able to walk around with your eyes closed, naked as the day you were born, like just like, and not have anyone harass you or try to harm you or, allow you to walk into traffic, right? Like we should be caring so much about each other, and about the ways in which we move through the world to create safe spaces for everyone, no matter what, right? Like if you are a victim of violence, but we're drinking, your drinking doesn't have anything to do with you being a victim of violence. That is because someone decided to do that to you, right? Um, if you grew up in poverty and are not, in shape or whatever, because it wasn't safe for you to run around your neighborhood, that's a systemic problem. That's not like you as an individual not going outside and running around and like, potentially being hit by a car or whatever, because there's like heavy traffic in your residential area. These are systems that we've set up and where people are being harmed. And we should be working to deconstruct these systems so that people can just live their lives and be themselves and be safe. Now, I mean, we don't live in a world like that. So a lot of people will tell you, be careful of where you are, be aware of your surroundings, like, don't like take a bunch of money out of your purse and like count it in like broad daylight in front of random people, right? Like, and that's all fine. But if something bad happens to you, 9 times out of 10, it's not because you did anything. And you are not the catalyst for the bad thing happening to you. And so I think taking those moments of care and being like, I'm a person, I'm valuable, I'm worthy, I deserve to be here, I deserve to be safe. And people who think otherwise maybe shouldn't be in my universe, allows you to hopefully like move away from the things that you do actually have control over. Because there are some things that you have control over, but there's ultimately not a lot.
I love that answer very, very much um because we started off talking about the individual responsibility, but this also allows permission to whoever's listening to this to give that responsibility to someone else. Like, it is not my fault that Black people are persecuted and like dehumanized in this country. And so, me being hyper vigilant, like anytime I step out my door, isn't something that I want to carry with me. I want to live authentically. I want to continue to do what I want to do. And like having that responsibility given to the system instead of me will
Mhm.
lighten the load a little bit and help me to really focus on like I can pause for care. I can be
Mhm.
caring to the people around me. I can do what I can do, but also like taking time to be like, no, for real, this is the system, acknowledging that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And you're not,
oh,
oh, sorry. Didn't want to interrupt.
oh, I wanted to talk about the flip side of that. I am
Mhm.
also a parent, And sometimes I feel that flip side coming out of me, I guess, in my parenting, where I'm like, okay, you need not to wear pink clothes, or you need not to be flamboyant, or you need, like, don't repeat after me at school. Like,
Yeah.
when I talk like that, I'm like, don't talk like that at school, talk like this instead.
Mhm,
But that flip side is like teaching my child to think that they're in control, like they have control of that.
mhm.
What or what helps you, I guess, to relinquish that control so that you're also not projecting that to other people?
Yeah, honestly, it helps to see other people doing it and have those conversations about them doing it. We have family and friends who let their little boy identified children run around in like pink pants because they already had the pink pants from their daughter. And you know what? We're not going to buy new pants every time he needs pants. It's fine. And just being like, oh, like this is fine, right? Like there's no reason that a child wearing pink pants should mean anything other than that child is wearing pink pants, right? And having those conversations with people in safe spaces and with people you love, and having, you know, people who love you model different things, is really, really helpful for things like that. And also, like you said, like acknowledging it when you're doing it. I almost said something to my child the other day. What was he doing? He was doing something. And I was like, oh man, that could be like really coded as aggressive. And you were like a little brown child. And I don't want you like doing this. And then I was like, he's 3. Like, come on. Like, you know, you can't, that's not, especially like in the house with us. Um, there's no reason for me to police him in that way because we have been over policed, and not just by the police but by like ourselves, um in ways that are really harmful and in ways that, you know, imprint on you and stay with you for the rest of your life. So I want to be really, really thoughtful about like what memories I leave my child in the moments that I can be thoughtful, right? Like everyone has those moments where they're just like, parenting response. But, you know, you want to be really, really thoughtful about things and give yourself space and room to breathe and pause and think and not just react. And that takes a lot of practice. And it also takes, like, I acknowledge, like, I have the privilege to do that, right? Like, we are relatively financially safe. We live in a safe neighborhood. Like, you're not always going to be in a position where you can, like, not react and everything turns out fine. Um, but if and when you can, it's important to be able to take that space to breathe because, like you said, it helps with that like hypervigilance, and all of these other things that like raise your cortisol levels, and you know, stress messes up your body, and it's partly why we have such poor health in this country. Like everybody is stressed out all the time, and that really does things to your heart and to your circulation and to your lungs. So if you can pausing, and practicing pausing and practicing, you know, breathing and giving yourself space and thinking about why you're doing a thing as you do it or before you do it. Um, all of these are muscles that, you know, it takes time to build.
I love that you're saying that it takes time to build and that you have to practice it. There was a time in my parenting career that I really thought that it was just going to flip. Like, I
Mhm.
will know how to do this. I will, even
Yeah.
in my actual career, sometimes I'm like, okay, I should be able to learn this skill easily. This is a book that I will comprehend. Sometimes I have to read books a couple of times to actually comprehend what this person was talking about
Mhm.
or get a different perspective afterwards. I love that you gave examples of what safe spaces look like and what people that you'd be able to have these conversations about parenting or about the fears that you may have around parenting, who those people would be. Have you found those same types of people in the work that you do in the data and the research and consulting?
Mhm. Well, sometimes I have. So that's a bright light, right? I have been really intentional about like in the first years of, and my business is new, and I talk about like I am building a business. I do not have a like this is not a 10K month, whatever you're hearing about. Like this is in progress. But I have been really intentional about networking. And so I love that, for example, LinkedIn has become, and LinkedIn itself is like pushing against this a little bit, but it's become so much more of a place where you can see people's personalities and their values in the things that they talk about and post and comment on. And so I can say, ooh, I want to connect with that person because we're thinking the same. Or, they just said something about like psychological safety in the workplace. Like obviously I'm talking about UK. And I was like, oh, that hit. I really want to be connected to that person. That person is awesome. And just, reading and digesting as much as possible. Sometimes before getting to connect to a person, and then sometimes being really really gentle with myself, in terms of like if I connect to someone and they start saying things that I am not cool with and do not agree with, just letting it go, right? Like just disconnecting and not having that in my universe anymore. Um, because I think part of taking care of yourself is being really really vigilant about what you let into your mind and in your spaces. And if I'm, logging on the LinkedIn and every time you're like saying negative or nasty or awful things, that's getting into me. So I don't want that. So I'll take some time away.
I love that, one, that you praise yourself on how vigilant you are about your spaces. That's some like pause for praise.
Yeah.
And I love that you talked about being gentle with yourself, like not being or not downplaying the choices that you're making, I guess, in like cutting those people off and not kind of placing the responsibility on yourself, like, oh, how could I not have known? Like, first
Mhm.
of all, LinkedIn is a very small window to people. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saw one post and thought, but also the social media gives us access to so much more people than we would have in real life.
Yeah. Mhm.
So yeah, it's weird. So much space, so much grace, and I love that you're affording that to yourself. So the people who are listening to this and thinking, I would like to start taking care of myself, or I would like to start being more gentle with myself.
Hmm.
What would be the top three tips you would share with them about starting the journey, I guess?
Yeah, I would say look into mindfulness and meditation. That has worked for me. I recommend it for other people. Even if you don't, go down the mindfulness rabbit hole and decide this is the thing I'm doing from now on. It often, like reading about that and getting into that as sort of an intro area, also often leads you to other things that may or may not be helpful. And I talk a lot with people about, and it just occurred to me right now that I should like create some kind of like how to create your own like self-care toolkit or whatever, because I think we should all have a toolkit of things that we know work for us, in terms of taking care of ourselves, and you should practice using them so you know what works when. Right, like when I'm experiencing anger, sometimes it works to help to listen to really angry music, and sometimes depending on what it is, I listen to really sad music because it's like, this is a thing that I'm disappointed by and that's why I'm angry, so I really need to like, dance it out or whatever. So creating your bag of tools that work for you, because it's going to be different from person to person and situation to situation, so that you have like this whole set of things that you can go to, and you can just pull one out and use it as needed, instead of trying to figure out what is the thing that will help me in this moment, because sometimes that can be a lot, on top of experiencing whatever you're experiencing, and you never really get to the other side. So trying to figure out, try different things, try breathing, try mindfulness, try music, try taking a walk, try art therapy. My therapist recommended coloring books at a really difficult time in my life, and I am all about the coloring book, but it depends on like what's going on, right? So have the different things that you can go to help yourself.
I love I love the permission that you're giving in that to pick things up and to try it, and put it back.
Mhm.
The reason I stick around the language of psychological safety is mostly the safety part, but the psychological to be specific.
Yeah.
But the safety part, helps me understand things, because when you're already in burnout, your house is already on fire. And if
Mhm.
you don't know that you're supposed to call 911, if you don't know that you're supposed to meet across the street, if you don't know that you're supposed to like ensure that if you don't know that until your house is on fire, then you're fucked. Like you were just fucked. So I need everyone who is listening to this to just take what Dr. Frazier said and just look over your plan and practice your plan regularly, weekly, like take an hour a week just to be like, what's in my safety kit? Like, what is in my safety plan? What am I going to do? Should I start getting into burnout? If I see a small fire in my kitchen, what
Mhm.
are we going to do? I love that so much. And I hope anyone who's listening to this takes so much away from it, because I wrote down a lot.
Oh, good.
Are there any last minute sprinkles you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up today?
Yeah, yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active over there. Chantell Frazier, PhD. My company, Anansi Consulting, focuses on mental health, but we are expanding to other areas of health, which is what I've sort of previously done in my career. Maternal child health, reproductive health being some of the highlights, because that's what I did my dissertation on, and want to do some consulting in that area. So I'm building that out. You can reach me there at it's either hello at Anansi Research, or C Frazier, just my first initial and then my last name, at Anansi Research. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. Um, and yeah, I want you to take care of yourselves, because I want there to be more of us around to change the world and make it better and build new companies and be the leaders that we've always needed. I think we're at a really exciting time for work. Not for the people who have like sort of been at the lead for a while. It's not really exciting for them, but it's exciting for the rest of us, because we're valuing things like showing up as yourself. We're pulling back the curtain of professionalism and like what that means, and what it absolutely not is. We're talking about, valuing like the time with your family and flexibility and whatever over, showing up and being like at the office in person all the time for, kind of no reason, and in a way that hurts the environment and hurts ourselves. So a lot of things are changing, in really positive ways, even though it seems like everything is on fire all the time. There's a lot of good stuff going on too. So as long as we take care of ourselves and each other and can ensure that we're around for the long haul, I think we've got some good things to look forward to.
This is like an ADHD tangent, but thank you so much for breaking down what your business is about and what you're pursuing in your business, because there are a lot of entrepreneurs who believe like, okay, I did this, I built a brand on this, and I won't be able to like move up. But you
Mhm.
know who you are as a professional, and you know that like, hey, this is something I have acknowledged in my past, and this is something I have experiences and knowledge in. So I would like to bring that into the fold. Like, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm currently doing, but I'm going to bring that in. And I just love that so much. Like, I know you said like I'm not 10K a month, but I've been doing this for like 3 years and I'm still not 10K. And so a lot of this is needed for entrepreneurs to hear, because you just keep going. And if you know that this is for values and things that don't come against your well-being, then keep doing the entrepreneurship. Oh, okay. ADHD tangent done. Thank you,
True. No,
everyone.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Frazier, for everything you shared today, because it's just very inspiring. To anybody who's listening to this, keep saying absolutely not to anything unaligned, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.